Scott Leysath, the Sporting Chef. Brought to you by Camp Chef, the way to cook outdoors.
Welcome to the show. I'm here at Country Meats in Elk Grove with Levi Pitt, who is the best meat cutter, wild game processor that I know.
I try.
I know a bunch of people too that don't do it necessarily correctly. Primarily, what's the biggest mistake that people make when they process their wild game?
They leave all the fat on and they leave all the sinew on,
Right.
the silver skin.
Sure.
Those two things have to come off.
Get started, man.
Okay.
First step.
Take the flanks off. The next will be the knuckle.
And Levi, it looks like you've done this a time or two.
Yeah, a couple times.
And tell me about this animal that we're cutting up.
Nice big buck. It weighs 132 pounds.
Yep, that's a good sized California deer. And how long did this deer hang?
About 7 to 10 days.
And what does the aging do?
Aging breaks down the tissue, makes it more tender. So
And
if
I'm
you
not seeing a lot of blood running off of this animal.
No.
That's good, right?
It's clean, it's dry, it's great. It's
Keep
a great
going.
animal. We're going to take off the legs here.
Tell me what you're doing with your sharp knife.
I'm going to bone out this shoulder.
Go.
Okay. So I'm going to take the meat off the top of this blade bone here. I'm going to take off the other side too. Makes it a lot easier to have a sharp knife. Much easier.
Well, whether it's in the field or when you get it home too, it sure makes a difference when you're breaking it down out there.
Oh,
too.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So on these shanks, if you don't take it off the bone, if you just cut them in half, brown them, braise them like an ossobuco, it falls right off the bone.
I boned out the shoulders
Uh-huh.
and the flank meat. That's what's in that pile there. I peeled the knuckles and I took all the sinew off of them.
Right.
And then I broke down the front. I have my ribs, my neck.
I'm curious to see what you're going to do with this neck because I like cooking the whole neck and letting
Mm-hmm.
the heat do the work. What are you doing?
I'm going to bone it out. This customer didn't ask for it.
Okay.
So I'm going to bone it out. I'm going to clean it up, save all the meat as possible.
And then over here we got the loin. What are you going to do with this guy?
The loins, we're going to bone the loins out.
Right.
And we're going to take all the sinew off of it. And he wants it cut into chops. So I'm going to cut nice little 1-inch chops.
We talked about the ribs over here. A lot of guys, they got a rib shot. The meat can be tainted,
Some people want the ribs.
right?
Most people don't. I just bone them out. But a lot of times they put a bullet hole through them. And they hit the stomach, they hit the heart, the blood. It goes everywhere. A little bit of age, and then pretty soon you got too much bacteria in there. That's it.
And this one looks pretty clean. But I want you to start on this neck.
The neck meat, I boned them out. The customer didn't want the neck, so I
Right.
boned it out and I added to my trim pile. I'm gonna make ground meat, some salami, and some breakfast sausage for this guy.
And the most important part on that loin is that it's really, really super clean. Silver skin gone. And your grinder will actually remove a lot of that silver skin too.
Yeah, in the head of the grinder,
Right.
It will catch the sinew, the
Right.
silver skin, and it'll get caught up in the front and it'll catch it.
And you know, the Western grinders do the same thing for your home unit. It's going to catch a lot of that. So at times you want to make sure that you take that out, clean the sinew out because it's going to get it clogged up and start over again. But the good part about it is you're not eating sinew. What are you doing next?
I am going to work on the hindquarters here.
Right.
We are going to work on the fillets, the loins, and the sirloins next.
Tenderloins, what are you doing?
I'm going to pull off the sinew, the blood, there's some veins in there.
Okay.
I'm going to clean them up. I'm going to make them look immaculate. I'm going to pull this vein off the back here.
And I'll tell you, one of the things that impresses me about what Levi does is he doesn't waste any meat. So if you're bringing your deer to Country Meats in Elk Grove, I want you to understand that you're going to get your money's worth. And for those who don't deer hunt, if you take a look at this piece of meat, this looks just like a beef tenderloin, only smaller.
So here's a loin. You see both eyes. Beautiful piece of meat. I've already pulled out the fillets, right? The tenderloins. There's a ridge bone down the top. I'm going to cut on this side of it, and I'm going to cut on this side of it. Using my thumb and some leverage, I'm going to go around this spine right here. I'm going to pull one piece of loin out.
And if this was beef, what would be the comparable cut? What would we call it?
This would be a New York. If it was bone-in, it would be T-bones and porterhouses. Using my knife, I'm going to separate the fat and the sinew right here. and then it just pulls out, it just peels out. This is a very nice piece of meat. You'll want to make sure you take care and try not to gouge it. There's one loin. I still have to pull all the silver skin off.
Sure.
Sirloins are kind of weird, they're odd. And I just use the tip of my knife. And I'm gonna follow this bone around to the table. And then follow this around. There is one sirloin. Clean that up a little bit. And I'm gonna stick my knife underneath here. And there is.
It's cleaned up, and as I look at this pile of meat we got going here, what I notice, even on the stuff you're going to grind, there's not a whole lot of white in there.
Yeah, you got to lean it up. You got to get the fat out of it. You got to get a lot of the silver skin out of it. And when we add the fat to it, it's going to be domestic. It's going to be beef or pork.
And nobody really gets more yield out of any of these things than what I've seen you do here. This is kind of the final right here. What do we have left?
So this is the end of it, and we have the 2 rounds, we have the 2 shanks, and the 2 rumps. This is kind of the way that I break it down. It's a little faster and easier for me to process it this way.
Right.
So.
Levi Pitt, Country Meats, terribly impressive on what you do with the deer. Do people learn from you? Do they pay attention? Do they see the difference between yours and theirs?
Some of them do. You know, I do the best I can and make it look as best as I can.
And there's no reason why somebody couldn't do it this way at home. They just have to take time. And if you don't have a bandsaw, you can do everything else. If it's on the hook,
absolutely,
and you're just cutting off a part at a time, really, terribly impressed. You should have learned something today. This is Levi Pitt from Country Meats in Elk Grove, California. I'm Scott Leysath.